You're very welcome to the Irish Political Roundup County Councillors Caucus Roundtable with me, Paul Brophy. Unfortunately, my colleague Cllr can't join us this evening, but we're talking with our county councillors, the forgotten powerhouse of the Irish political system. All politics starts at grassroots within our communities. Joining us on episode 3 of the Councillors Caucus here on the Irish Political Roundup, we're delighted to be joined by Councillor Michael Sheehan, who's an independent councillor on Wexford County Council, who has been an elected representative for 26 years, and we can credit you, Michael, for coming up with the title County Councillors Caucus. Also joining us this evening is Councillor John Leahy, who is an independent councillor on Offaly County Council and is the current Cathaoirleach of Offaly County Council, and has been a county councillor since 2009 and is a former leader of Renew Ireland. And joining us for the first time on the Councillors Caucus is Councillor Ger Sheehan of Aintu, who is a member of Fingal County Council. Ger is one of 8 councillors Aintu has across the country, and he was first elected in June 2024. Can you all hear me? Yeah, you're very welcome. You're very welcome. It's a busy time at local county council level, and so Michael, we'll start with you. You had 2 motions in front of Wexford County Council, one on inheritance tax and one on animal cruelty or Stouts Law, and they're both successfully passed.
Yeah, I did, Paul, and thanks for the invite, and it's great to be back with you all again. We had this week is very busy because we had our plenary session at the county council, and then straight after that, on Wednesday we had the municipal. So it's been like one meeting that started on Monday morning. It just hasn't ended. But there's a couple of things coming up, and I think John and Jared probably be in the same fashion. We're in the budget season, which means we're caught with tight deadlines. So there's a window of opportunity in terms of whether you set the property tax, what rate you set of that, and then the timeline. So it's kind of a ticking clock, and we have a limited 2 to 3 weeks to get the budget through the statutory process and then onto the meeting. So that's kind of like the elephant in the room that we're kind of talking about, but not talking about yet. But yeah, in the meantime, we had a full agenda, and we had lots of motions on different areas. But the 2 I had, and the 2 I was kind of keeping an eye on, and I've been working on for quite some time, as you and John and Roisin would have known, we would have spoke about it. One is Stouts Law. And Stout was a puppy that went into a foster family and was born with physiological and all sorts of defects going on. And in fairness to the family, they took the living best care of the dog. But unfortunately, due to the circumstances in which it was born and the circumstances around it, the poor dog had to be put to sleep. So there is a movement out there called Stouts Law, and it's Stouts Campaign. And what we're looking for is to change to the Agricultural Act to allow simply to put in a regulator that would regulate the conditions on which dogs would be bred other than a registered. So if you're a registered breeder, you'd have absolutely nothing to worry about. But if you're a backyard breeder, it's trying to capture all of them in under one regulator. And it says, listen, you can't breed a dog before a certain age. You can't breed a dog a certain amount of times per year. And there's only a certain age you can breed a dog up to, and after that you don't. So it's like, it really does enshrine the welfare of the dog, the welfare of the animal, the welfare of and I didn't get to say it. I can say it here, but I didn't get to say it in the council chamber. You got to take care of the bitch. So, the welfare of the bitch and all that sort of stuff. So, yeah, I spoke to some of the councillors over the weekend at a training conference, and they wanted to be just assured that this does not put another layer of regulation on top of those people who are already doing what they're required to do, and it does not. So they were quite happy with that. So thankfully, it passed unanimously. It went through, and there was no issues with it whatsoever. So, and what I try to do with all my motions is that if the motion is passed, that we circulate it to all local authorities in the country. So, the 2 lads can keep an eye on their agenda. It'll be heading their way now at the next monthly meeting. They'll get, as it is with all these things, they'll get correspondence from Wexford County Council saying at the October meeting, the following motion was passed, and it's up then to the other local authorities then to take up that. But it really is something that we need to look at, particularly in the run up to Christmas, particularly in post-COVID, with the amount of either dog pounds or WSPCA been full to the brim. Like, we really kind of need to knuckle down on this. We are a nation of dog lovers, don't get me wrong, and we love our animals. And for those who have dogs and cats, like, they are members of the family. So to hear and see any dog or any cat suffering is just intolerable cruelty, and that's what it does do. So that was the first one. And then the second motion, Paul, again, we spoke to it with the councillor from Cork, whose name escapes me now at the moment, but we spoke about the
Albert
edit campaign. Yes, there you go. Albert, we spoke about the edit campaign, which is the End Discrimination of Inheritance Tax. And this now, keep an eye on this in the new year, because I think this thing is going to flare up to no end. Because, as you may be aware, if you have a child, a son or a daughter, you can leave up to €400,000 in your estate before they pay inheritance tax. However, if you don't have an immediate descendant, or if you don't have any children at all, 40,000 is the limit you can leave. So there is as I would argue, a discrepancy. It's a discriminatory part of the law that has to be rectified. And what we're looking for is Minister Jack Chambers, because of the expenditure, and Minister Norma Fola, because it is equality at the end of the day, to come together and to agree a protocol and a framework that we would harmonise the band rates. And I know, John, we spoke about it the last time. You've been an auctioneer and all that jazz. You'd have a good understanding of this. Like, it really is unfair that, like, if you're a married couple and want to leave something to a niece or a nephew, the threshold is 40,000. And if you're, a couple of any description, same sex, different sex, whatever, and you don't have any children and you leave it to a niece or nephew or a carer, it's still only 40,000. So it really is a punitive oversight of legislation, and it's something that we're having to rectify. So that too, you'll be happy to hear. And I thank Lisa MacDonald, who's a solicitor here at Wexford Town. She's on the county council with us, and she backed it. And again, it went through. So, it's gone through. Now, one area where we did have a bit of a bang is we have, now, as you know, I'm in TaxNewRoss, which is it has the most inland port in the country at 32 kilometres from the sea. And we had a request from the Defence Forces to upgrade and change our bylaws in TaxNewRoss Port to allow for the importation of ammunition and munitions. So as you can tell, I guess, given the current environment of everything in Europe and everything in the world, that sparked off a hell of a bang, no pun intended. And to be fair, Councillor John Dwyer, who's on the municipal with me in Ross, had a very valid point about the importation of ammunition and the importation of arms and where is this all going to lead. And to be fair, Eamon Hoare, the Director of Service, was very clear. He's like, look, this was a request from the Defence Forces to harmonise and to bring TaxNewRoss Port in line with all the others, that if in the event they need to import ammunition, subject to the license, subject to the criteria, subject to everything else that's safeguarding the importation of arms, that they could, as an option, bring it into TaxNewRoss Port as they can in other ports like Waterford, Cork and Dublin. So it took off quite a bit. And you know what, the beauty, and the lads will tell you this, and hopefully Ger has experienced it, if not he certainly will, these debates can take a life of their own, and you just don't know where they're going to go. When they go out into the middle of the floor, all sorts of things are thrown onto the middle of the floor, and it tends to be a bit of a witch hunt. But like, at the end of the day, it was a very simple proposal. The Defence Forces wanted us to harmonise the bylaws, but some councillors, there is a feeling out there that we've been slowly but surely drifting into some sort of European military alliance, and the use of TaxNewRoss Port heretofore, which has always had what we would consider locally, it's always had, like, the last choice of everything. So we imported coal, we imported fertilizer, and we imported cars. We never got any of the sexy stuff coming in through the port. And now here we feel like, the government wants to import arms through TaxNewRoss. Not quite accurate, but still, it's a valid point. So yeah, all in all, it's been a busy point. Now, there is one thing though, and it'll certainly come to John, and certainly come to Ger as well. It'll come to all the councils. There was a provision in the budget. Now, this is the beauty. There was a provision of the budget that said, the minister announced with fanfare that we are going to get rid of the derelict sites levy. Now, the derelict sites levy is a 7% levy on property that's on the derelict site list. And there's a whole process of how a building goes on the derelict site register. Anybody wants to see it, go to your local authority website. You can Google it, or you can do a search command, and the current derelict sites list for your particular county will come up. And you can see the property, when it went on it, who owns it, and the market value if they have it. Right? Fair enough. But the budget contained a beautiful one-liner that says we are going to replace the 7% derelict sites levy with a derelict sites tax. And that tax is going to be at a minimum 7%. Now, why this is a beauty, and this why we need to watch this, is because the local authorities are responsible for putting a building on the derelict sites list. And the local authorities then are responsible for levying the charge. And when there are charges to be collected, it's collected by the local council. Under the new proposal, revenue are going to be collecting the derelict sites tax. And that money then is gone into the central government fund. And that central government fund then, I suspect, even though I haven't been told anything, I suspect what will happen is the money they collect in derelict site taxes, not levies, will go into a fund, and that fund will be used for the vacant property, the Creek and Oha, and all of the RR and the URDF. So there's a bit of a sleight of hand here where the county councils were collecting this. They're no longer going to be doing it. It'll be done through revenue, and that money will come back in indirectly to the county council, but at a much reduced rate. So there's two issues that I'm watching, and maybe the lads will keep an eye out for too. Number one, the local authorities should be the one collecting it because it's a local property. And number two, I think, different parts of the county have different levels of dereliction. I'm sure Offaly and I'm sure parts of Dublin have the same thing. So, for example, if you look at the geo-target list, which is done by the Chamber of Commerce and on Post, it'll tell you what the vacancy and the dereliction rate of properties in your area is. At the moment, TaxNewRoss is an outlier. We have 24% of our commercial buildings either vacant and or derelict. Now, that doesn't mean we're 24% derelict. But what I'm arguing is that the municipal in TaxNewRoss should be able to put a higher derelict sites tax than, say, places like Gorey, which have a much lesser element of vacancy and a much lesser element of dereliction. So it's something that, because, like, weirdly, I love this sort of stuff. I love the taxation side of it and the economic side of it. So it's something that we need to keep an eye on, because the government could be doing a twist of hand here where it looks like they're getting tough on dereliction, but really what they're doing is collecting more money that they're putting in the central pot that they're going to give back to the county councils, money that we're already getting.
Yeah, because when you look at it, you think if the revenue is being collected, but will it all go back into the local authority?
But like the minister said, he's going to get tough on dereliction and tough on vacancy and all that sort of stuff. That's fine if they back it up with money. But if they're taking money from the county councils and then giving it back to them with their other hand, that's really no benefit to us, because those schemes need to be funded centrally from the government. The URDF, which is the Urban Regeneration Development Fund, and the RRDF, the Rural Regeneration Development Fund, they're all taxpayer funded. They're all centrally funded. So if they're going to take our derelict sites money and then give us back that through the UR and the RRDF, then we're no better off.
Right, so it's just coming in one hand and going out the other, but when they're going from one end to the other, there's stuff kind of lost in the shuffle, so to speak.
Well, I think, Paul, anytime we bring in the revenue, that's a loss of power and a loss of revenue to the local authorities, because we just never get it back. Same with LPT. When the revenue collected, there are counties who don't get the money back, and there are counties that get some of the money back. And like now they're in the budget season, every county council will know how much we get from the equalisation fund. And, in the case of Wexford, we're getting 3 million back. So in that regard, that's the way revenue operates. And if they do this with the derelict sites tax, they're really not making any difference at all, because that money that's currently in the UR and the RRDF will go somewhere else, and they'll just supplement it with the derelict sites tax. So it'll look good on paper and look good in the press release, but when you get to the spreadsheets, you're going to find a hole in your finance.
County councillors, they are a hidden powerhouse within democracy here in Ireland, because something happens, let's say, at the high government level, it's the county councillors that have to deal with the impact of it, be it good or bad, on the ground, So I think the roles of county councillor is totally kind of maybe not given the full recognition that it should, and that's what we're here trying to do here on the Irish political round. Well, I'd like to say a big thank you to Councillor John Lahey, who's also a Hirlock of Offaly County Council, to Councillor Michael Sheehan of Wexford County Council, and to County Councillor on Fingal Council, Ger Sheehan. Thank you very much for taking the time to chat to us here on the Irish Political Roundup. And I'd like to say thank you to my colleague Roisin Cleric, who unfortunately couldn't be with us this evening. I'd like to say thank you to our viewers for taking the time to sit down and watch us here on the Irish Political Roundup. It's always great to hear your feedback, and it's always brilliant for you to take the time to just check out what's happening on the Irish political scene. So from me, Paul Brophy, have a great evening, and we will talk soon.
Thanks very much.
Thanks very much, Paul.